Welcome to Happy Hill, the podcast. We deliver meaningful content to grow your faith, well-being, and lifestyle. Hey neighbor, I'm your favorite neighbor, Jay Murray, lifestyle coach, inspiring others to develop self-worth through leadership applications that will enable them to live in purpose. Welcome to the neighborhood. Happy Hill, the podcast. For joining us for another edition of Happy Hill, the podcast. This is where we connect, cultivate, and build meaningful content that will enable you to live a purpose-driven life. And today, we kick off our fall series, Happy Hill, the podcast, School of Leadership. This is where we take an opportunity to talk to some amazing leaders, get an understanding of their how-to, gain insight into their expertise and their experiences to really see how they have been successful in their leadership journey. And today's guest has definitely done that. He is a keynote speaker, executive coach, a corporate trainer with a passion of creating value for every client. Before he became a speaker, he was an NFL player, played 5 years in the NFL as an offensive lineman. And he's also an HBCU grad. Shout out to the Howard University Bisons. Please welcome to our neighborhood today, Mr. Marques Ogden. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. How you doing today, Jay? How's everything going along? All right?
Everything's fantastic, my man. Everything is fantastic. So again, I want to thank you for joining us. And I guess to kind of think about this and really get an understanding of your leadership journey, tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of your understanding your background, maybe a little bit of your upbringing, kind of bringing us current. And I definitely want to use it as somewhat of a backdrop as we talk about leadership.
Yeah, so I'm from Washington, D.C. I live now in Raleigh, North Carolina with my wife and 2 daughters. I really enjoy the work that I do, helping people as a speaker. But again, before all that, I went to Howard University. I was drafted to the National Football League in 2003 by Jack Del Rio and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Really enjoyed my time there, had a lot of great things in that regard. Really enjoyed all the things that I did as far as the NFL, my experiences, my teammates, the community. And football, I tell you about it was a platform to the next phase of my life. It wasn't everything. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't my everything. It was like I did football to kind of help me figure out what I was going to do next. And after I got out of the transition, I'm right here. Yeah. I struggled immensely with transition when I left the game, and I didn't do a good job of prepping for the next phase, even though I wanted to do something different, right? I didn't understand what that looked like. And finally, after about 6 months, I put the bottle down, and then I said, okay, Marques, what are we going to do now? I had lost my father. I didn't know what to do with my life. I didn't know where I was going to go, no direction. So I started a construction company called Caden Premier Enterprises. And Caden became the largest African-American owned subcontracting business in the city of Baltimore and the state of Maryland for 2 years. We were doing earthwork, utilities, concrete, demolition. We just grew. But unfortunately, as the company grew, so did my ego. And when my ego got bigger than the good part of my soul, I ended up making some mistakes. And a lot of my best people left the organization. And when that happened, Jay, I ended up, getting extended on a project in downtown Baltimore. It was called the DHMH, the Department of Health and Mental Service. The Department of Health and Mental DHMH, so Department of Health and Mental Services. Job. So it was the DHMH Health Laboratory in downtown Baltimore, and I ended up getting overextended on the job, and I spent about $3 million of my money unexpectedly. And when the developer and the owner and the contractor denied my change order, it sent me into a Chapter 7 bankruptcy in 2013. I lost everything and had to move from Baltimore down to Raleigh.
Wow. So definitely a lot of, as you mentioned, some life lessons into that, as you mentioned, as far as transition to the NFL, and now being an entrepreneur. Like, what's one thing that when you think about leadership, and even as you mentioned, hey, your ego got the best of you, what's certain things that you now look back on that has really helped you? And if it was one leadership quality that really has now helped you to mold into now what you're doing as a speaker? What's one of those things that really stood out to you?
So I would say active listening, the ability
Mhm.
to listen to understand, not listen to respond. And that was really a big thing that I was doing when I had my construction company. I was listening to respond. Like I wasn't trying to really process information or listen to people or gather, intellectual thoughts in that regard. I just became somebody that was so focus on always having to speak or always having to think that he knew everything and he knew the right answers and he knew how to go about doing this or doing that. And because of that, my ego got really, really big. And that's when I ended up losing everything in 2013 because I got into that position where I didn't understand how to actively listen to
Mhm.
really, to understand and comprehend what was going on. I was basically listening just to hear somebody and then just respond with what I wanted to say.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. And when you think about what you're doing now, as a as executive coach, when you think about far as like the leadership qualities that you're now helping others to develop, what's one of those things that you really try to, um, I guess, in other words, preach, or in this case, really help them build as it relates to being a executive coach or in their leadership journey?
So I preach to people that you have to remain cognitive and don't get emotional because it's
Mhm.
very easy to get emotional in business. It's very easy to get emotional in when you're interacting with somebody. It's very easy to get emotional in your personal life. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, when you get emotional, when there's nothing wrong with good emotion, like when you're playing sports or you're being very active and you're being very passionate, that's fine. I mean, you don't want to get emotional, like, basically, wearing your heart on your sleeve, or
Yeah.
if somebody says something to you that you don't like, losing your cool and letting people see that you're affected, or people trying to get under your skin and then you're allowing them to do that and they see it and they continue to go after you because they know it's affecting you. So I tell my
Yeah.
clients all the time, great leaders are very aware of their emotions and they remain
Mhm.
cognitive at all times and they don't get emotional when somebody's trying to either press their buttons or get under their skin. It doesn't matter to a great leader because a great leader understands if you show that you're upset or you show that you're bothered by somebody's antics, they're not going to stop. They're going to keep going and going like the
Yeah.
Energizer Bunny. So you have to be very aware of that in that regard.
And speaking of being aware, in which again, when I think about far as there's so many different leadership qualities. One thing I had to continue to learn is self-awareness, right? And when you think about far as, not being too emotional, right? And really understand emotional IQ, what are certain things that individuals can do outside of being self-aware to really manage their emotions as a leader?
What they can do is they can learn how to communicate what they want to say and not
Mhm.
allow it to be bottled in, because great
Yeah.
leaders are going to communicate what's going on and their thought process. Nothing you can do is learn how to delegate things to the right people, because I don't care how smart you are as a leader. The human mind is designed to do a lot of things, but it's
Mhm.
not designed to do everything. So you
Yeah.
have to be an individual that understands that, and you're not putting yourself in a position where you are trying to take on too much and you're going to get overwhelmed. If you get overwhelmed, then you get what? You get like frustrated. And if you get frustrated, what happens? You get emotional. Then what happens? Bad things
Mhm.
happen. So it's very important to stay even keel. But communication's big, delegation of tasks is big, and that's very important to continue to move down the path of getting where you want as a leader in life.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally agree with you on that because one thing I believe in Happy Family, you'll kind of hear me say this throughout these conversation is that leadership is not a title, but a decision. It's a choice that you make. And when I'm hearing you talking about, listening, Marcus, and communication, that doesn't just apply in the corporate setting or the business setting, but it also applies at home too as well.
Mhm.
Even with myself, being married for 15 years, having two kids, and I see that you're in your daughter room. I'm curious to know, like, what certain things that, when you think about your leadership journey, things that you learn that you also apply at home, whether it's listening, communicating, what certain things that was really somewhat of a dual approach that you use, or that you help, that you learn at home, that you took to the corporate setting, or you took corporate setting to at home.
Without
um
without a doubt, patience,
yeah,
because nothing worth anything is going to happen quickly.
yeah.
And that's really important in that regard. And you have to be an individual that is patient in the process. And I tell people all the time, focus on the end result,
Yeah.
not the day-to-day grind. Because if you focus on the day-to-day grind and the monotony, you will get into a position in that regard. And I think it's so important that you have to understand that patience is going to take you from the start or wherever you are to the finish line and beyond. So
Mhm.
I feel a lot of times when people are not successful or they come up short or things don't work out, it's not because they're not talented enough. It's not because they haven't put enough hard work, and not because they're not disciplined enough. They're not patient enough. And because of that, they end up losing belief in themselves. And once
Mhm.
you lose belief in yourself as an entrepreneur, a family man, family
Yeah.
woman, a business leader, whomever you are, once you
Mhm.
lose that belief, your superpower is gone. Our
Yeah.
belief in ourselves is our superpower. And
Mhm.
once we lose because we're not patient enough or because we want something to happen quicker than it's supposed to, that's when bad things happen for people. Like for me, speaking wise, it took me 2.5 years to get my first paid speaking job. If I would have
Wow.
quit at 6 months or half a year, or I'm sorry, 6 months or a year or year and a half, etc., we're not here today. We have a new
Mhm.
podcast. We had a podcast that was in the top 1.5%. I had a co-host. We parted ways, irreconcilable differences. So I said, it's time for us to move on. No ill will, no hard feelings. And I was hesitant to start another podcast. I'm like, I don't know how it's going to go. It's going to be
Yeah.
received. It's a lot of work. Well, then my good friend Gus Farrat, who is a former quarterback in the National Football League, Gus said, Marcus, go ahead and start with us, the NFL Alumni Network. Let's go ahead and get this rolling. And I did. And we launched July 22nd of 2022. And we already are in the top 2.5% in the world, most
Wow.
listened to podcasts after only 30 days. We've been out for a little over a month now. It's been about 5 weeks that we've been out. We just got on Apple July 6th. And we already have 100 out of 100 5-star ratings. We already are in the top 100 for all sports category. Sorry, but we're
Wow.
already in the top 100 for the sports category for all Apple Sports podcasts.
Mhm.
And we're just growing and growing day by day. My point is that if our brand,
Yeah.
wasn't patient enough to wait for this to develop, then where we're at today would not be.
Yeah, yeah. That's I mean, it's really as you was kind of talking about, the patience and really just during that time staying disciplined, you know. Because one thing that I have learned, and I have mentioned this in previous podcasts, that motivation is only going to take you but so far, you know.
Mhm.
But the discipline that you have in working in your craft and making sure that you continue to sharpen your skills is definitely key, because that's going to continue to keep you going, continue to fuel your passion, and continue to be your why. So quick question. What's the name of the podcast?
Sure, it's called the Get Authentic with Marcus show. And we have out
Okay,
right
Get
now
Authentic.
Yep, 10 episodes. We actually had one that dropped today with Colonel Mark Volk. And I actually said on my podcast, and when I recapped his amazing interview, something similar to what you said, I said leadership is not a title, it is a responsibility. So Colonel Mark Volk was actually working in the Pentagon on 9/11. So he was there in the building when the plane crashed into the building. He talked about how he went into hero mode to save as many lives as he could. He talked about when he felt the second explosion at the building. He told everybody to evacuate. And then within like a couple of minutes of getting out of the building, the floors collapsed and it would have pancaked them to death if he hadn't gotten out of there. And we've had him on our show. His episode came out today. We had Lee Kemp, who was a phenomenal African American pioneer in the wrestling world, was in the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
Great guy. We have on there Marlon Kerner, former NFL athlete, Jeff Garcia, former NFL athlete, Gus Farrat, just to name a few. So again,
Mm-hmm.
we're really about that whole process of getting people to go where they want to go.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And as you mentioned early on in the as you was kind of giving us your background story, one thing you mentioned was the challenges of transitioning from NFL to either professional career or business entrepreneur. Um, what was some of those challenges? Was it so much of just pivoting, or was it something that you had to think through and kind of figure out and reset your goals?
You have to reset your focus when you're leaving sports to go into the corporate world, because a lot of the same things you do, discipline, focus, hard work, apply, but it's
Hmm.
not the same as the community environment, it's the locker room. It's not the same as talking to people, in the field. You communicate not the same way in the corporate setting. So you have to make adjustments in your communication skill sets, in your leadership skill sets, and how you interact with people. You're probably going to be working with a lot more female. I mean, of course, now today, which is awesome, there's a lot more females in coaching and reffing, which is
Hmm.
great. But when I played, we didn't have a lot of that. So when you go into the corporate world, you have to work with more females, and you have to be able to adjust to how you do your business and all that kind of. You can't talk the same way in the locker room like you talk
Yeah.
in a corporate boardroom, because that's not the way you do it. You don't want to offend anybody. You shouldn't. You should talk very professional, very matter of fact. So there's a lot of things in that regard that make it where the corporate setting, although football taught me a lot, there was a lot of differences in the corporate arena than it was in the sports arena.
Yeah. And what ways did you develop those skills? What ways did you do to kind of really sharpen those skills to really take that leap and help you with your adjustment?
Really, man, it's just when I started my construction company and I had to learn how to communicate better. I had to learn how to lead people in the field, in the office. I had to learn how to market the business. I had to learn how to interact with different people for jobs and collecting payment, and how to budget, and how to work with. There's four major parts of any successful business. There's marketing, there's
Hmm.
sales, there's operations, and there's finance. And once I learned those four with Kate in the beginning, we
Hmm.
had some success. Problem was, as we had success, I was not a good sound leader, and I lost sight of what was important. And because of that, I ended up losing my company and everything that I owned because of my own ego and my own arrogance.
Yeah, yeah. A lot. Wow, you dropping a lot of gems for us, Marcus, and I really appreciate that. When you think about you know what makes a great leader, you kind of touched on a couple of things as far as communication, as far as listening, emotional intelligence. What's other things that you feel really helps define great leaders?
Having a balanced chi. It's a Far
Mm-hmm.
East term, and having balanced energy. Don't get too
Mm-hmm.
high, don't get too low. Don't get too upset, don't be too passive. But great leaders also are biased towards taking action. If you make a mistake, own it, fix it, move on. But don't sit there and dwell. Don't sit there and be negative. Don't sit there and be a Debbie Downer, because sitting there and sulking does nothing to rectify the problem or to rectify your mindset. Great leaders also have the ability to shift their mindset from a negative to a positive. And once you can master that, then you can master anything going forward as a leader.
Yeah, totally, totally. And as you again through your leadership journey, what certain things that you continue to do to continue to develop yourself, whether it's books, whether it's training, how do you continue to make sure you continue to develop those leadership skills?
Really simple. Surround myself with great leaders and learn
Mm,
from them. Books are great, training's awesome, but getting that life experience from people who are walking the walk and not just talking the talk, to me, that's how you develop greatness as a leader. You follow other great leaders and you take bits of their lifestyle, their chi, their interactions, and you tweak it to make it your own. And from there, you're your own leader, but you're basing it off of other successful leaders who have proven that they can drive innovation. That's huge.
yeah, yeah, totally, totally. As you was mentioning, I was just thinking as I as I through my development, one thing that one of my mentors told me is to be a great leader, you also have to be a great follower.
Mhm.
Because you have to understand who to follow and what certain things that you are looking to either develop yourself or to continue to gain insight, or really continue to build your credibility or your brand. And as you mentioned, as far as surrounding yourself with great leaders, is it almost surrounding yourself with individuals that are stronger in different in areas that you may be weak in, or is it surrounding yourself with individuals that are in certain areas that you may have a interest to go in?
It's not about that. It's just surround yourself with people who've proven to have success in whatever they're doing. It's things that you want to do. So it's
Hmm.
not about them being better or strong. It's about them having proven methodologies. It goes back to the old saying, why reinvent the wheel?
Yeah.
So if you can learn how to exercise what great leaders do, then that's what it's all about. So you want to channel your energy and your focus in the direction of great leadership, because again, great leadership leaves clues. But if you're not open to the clues or you're not open to innovation and change, you're never going to be a
Hmm.
great leader. Because I tell everybody, great innovation drives change.
Yeah.
Great change comes from great leadership that's not afraid to step out of the comfort zone, because the actor Jonah Hill has a great quote. The comfort zone is where dreams go to die. So you
Hmm.
make the choice. You make the decision if you're going to be a great leader or if you're going to sit on the sideline and talk about what you should be doing, but you don't have that, that moxie or that swagger. Say, you know what, even if I screw up, that's okay, but I'm just going to
Yeah.
get in the game. If you can't, you can never win the game if you don't play the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Totally. Definitely. One of the things that I have learned is being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And I think
Mhm.
one of the biggest things with leadership is just kind of throwing yourself out there, and depending on your learning style. My learning style is just to jump in the deep end and just learn.
Mhm.
Hands on type of learning, where others may want to do training and other type of things there. One last question, man, and again, I want to thank you for your insight that you provide to us. In your own words, how would you define leadership?
Leadership is the art of getting people to do what you want done because they want to do it. General Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Thank you, sir. And as far as just again, just dropping the name of your podcast again.
Yeah, sure. It's called the Get Authentic with Marcus Show. Marques. We're on every platform: Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube. And we're just so blessed. Like I said, we're in the top 2.5% in the world after only 1 month's time. We have some great interviews come. As a matter of fact, Brett Favre will be coming out next Monday talking about his transition from the NFL to working in corporate America. great leadership skills, great interview. And his comes out this next Monday, August 8th. Today, Colonel Mark Volk dropped. He was in the Pentagon when 9/11 hit, one of the most horrific days of our country's history. He was a survivor, saved many lives that day. We have a lot of great people that are on the podcast. We're only 10 episodes in, but people are loving them. And like I said, it's word spreading. Check us out, and hopefully you'll enjoy it.
Well, great, man. I can't wait to take a listen to it. Anything else, man, you want to mention as far as anything you got going, where people can find you, any social media handles?
Yeah, they can go to our LinkedIn, Marques Ogden, Instagram at Marques Ogden, Facebook, Marques Ogden, TikTok at Marques Ogden 71, and connect with us. We look forward to communicating with you and hopefully having you work with us in some capacity. Just give us a call. We're always open to talk to people.
We're great, man. Hey, I want to thank you again, Marques, for joining us for Happy of the Podcast, School of Leadership and Family. As always, know that, hey, in life, things will happen, but trust in God would let you know that you can do anything. So again, love God, love self, love your neighbor. I'm your favorite neighbor, Jay Murray. Until next time, be blessed.